Hi everyone, before we start the recap here, I want to thank today's sponsor, the First Descendant. The First Descendant is a free third-person co-op RPG shooter coming to Steam, PS5, PS4, and the Xbox Series at launch. Developed using Unreal Engine 5 for its high-quality graphics, you'll be playing as different characters with distinct skills and combat abilities. Play co-op with your friends to fight huge bosses with unique appearances and combat styles, while utilizing the grappling hook to move freely throughout the game. The Steam beta will be taking place on October 20th through the 26th. You can register for the beta by going to the Steam page for the game and clicking Request Access. Be sure to add the game to your wish list as well if you are interested. Thank you again to the First Descendant for sponsoring today's video. And now, here's the video. Season of the Haunted has wrapped up. And thus, as we usually do, let's recap the season, shall we? As usual, we start with the story. And as things have been for the past few seasons, it was really good. This season dealt with Callus trying to link himself with the pyramid ship on the moon. The Leviathan comes back, just covered in egregore, which was found on the Glykon back in Season 13, which is linked to the Darkness, the Witness, etc., etc. The Witness and Callus kind of getting buddy-buddy. Callus is using the nightmares from the Lunar Pyramid as a weapon on board the Leviathan as he seeks to link with the pyramid ship. I guess like his consciousness or something along those lines. The Crown of Sorrow is being used as a way for Eris to study nightmares as we sort of capture them while on the Leviathan to block Callus's communication with the pyramid on the moon. Something like that. Anyway, there's that cutscene at the very beginning of the season with the ritual that she does to help protect us or boost our defenses against the nightmares. We dealt with our nightmares during Shadowkeep. This season we help out Crow, Zavala, and Keitel with theirs, which takes up the bulk of the weekly missions and story content. The first week of a character was a failure, the second week was a success, and we get to see more behind the curtains of the things that ail Crow, Zavala, Keitel. Crow is worried about repeating the mistakes that he made in the past. Zavala seeks forgiveness from what happened to his wife and his son, unable to forgive himself anyway. And Keitel is trying to deal with the fact that she is trying to rule the Cabal in a different way than her father. You know, character development. In the final week, you go to the pyramid ship itself to stop Callus from sort of fusing himself, his consciousness with the pyramid, since I think he's technically just a part of the Leviathan now, or just like the Leviathan itself. So we stopped that from happening, but Eris is like, that just bought us some time. Callus is a herald of the Witness trying to bring the second collapse. I'm summarizing. Then we have that radio message with Eris speaking with the Drifter as sort of a teaser, I guess, maybe potentially for some upcoming story things, I hope. That is a very quick summary, anyway, of the events of the season that we experienced in-game. Of course, there are lore books to go read and way better videos to watch if you would like. I very much enjoyed, yet again, the story offerings for the season. It was fun logging in, learning more about these characters. I'm also a sucker for anything Callus related, so it was very fun having him pop up, even if half the time all he was saying was, "For the love of God, just join forces with me, please, bro." And I like that the season felt linked to the overall story. Seasons prior have occasionally felt like they could just be considered killing time while the real story happens later on. This season has story elements that are important to the overall story that is currently happening, which I really appreciated. I think the only hang-up that I had was that you kind of knew how the pace was going to go after week 3. Fail, success, fail, okay, success, fail, success, oh, it's Keitel, okay, fail, success. But that is a relatively minor complaint. But getting to see a different side of Zavala, even a different side of the Cabal in Keitel, was very refreshing to see. Crow, you know, Crow, I get it. Crow could use a breather, give him a season or two off. It's been good, but there's just been a lot of him recently. Let's bring a different character back for a little bit. I continue to enjoy the story. I think this is one part of the game that Bungie will continue to absolutely knock out of the park until the final expansion, and then some. Which brings us to gameplay. The seasonal activity was on board the Leviathan itself. Leviathan became a destination, so to speak, and you would trigger this event manually. It consisted of killing a bunch of dudes, and then killing some bigger dudes, and then killing a mini-boss, repeating that for the second phase, and then phase 3 had whatever the Omega boss of the week was. A full clear with around 4 to 5 people probably took you around 10 minutes. As far as seasonal activities go, it was mostly unremarkable. Pretty par for the course, probably slightly below par. Not a whole lot going on with this. We also have the Scythe weapon, which was pretty neat to use for a while, but that was pretty much it otherwise when it came to seasonal, repeatable content. You also had a bunch of secret events happening on board the Leviathan in the other 2 areas, which most of the time amounted to some dudes are spawning in, please kill them, and were linked to seasonal triumphs for the title. The Leviathan ended up being a lot like the Moon for me. I played the Moon in D1, so Shadowkeep wasn't as thrilling versus someone who maybe never went to the Moon before. I've been to the Leviathan, I've done the raid many times, so it was all just very familiar. I personally have had no nostalgia for the Leviathan itself as a raid, as a destination, but I'm sure others who really enjoyed the Leviathan in the past probably enjoyed having it now, especially as a true destination as opposed to only a raid. But I'm sure there are some people out there who also would have liked to have seen the Leviathan return as a raid. Week over week, we had those story missions, which were pretty entertaining as far as story missions go, with some hidden collectibles to find along the way, also for triumphs linked to the title, with some more story exposition and backstory to listen to. At the Crown of Sorrow, we had our friend, the 7x3 grid of upgrades making a return, along with your usual suite of bounties. This season featured the return of several popular opulent weapons, Austringer, Beloved, Callus Minitool, and Drang, with Minitool and Drang getting the perk Incandescent, which quickly became a fan favorite thanks to how strong it feels and its link with Solar 3.0, a major part of the sandbox this season. Austringer is also a fan favorite PvP hand cannon, and Beloved was a very popular sniper back in Season 7. These weapons got much more attention than the haunted weapons that launched with this season, with most of the haunted weapons not really breaking into the meta in any significant ways, maybe save for some very specific use cases for the rocket bump in the night, and maybe the shotgun without remorse. All of these weapons are craftable, in addition to a couple of drops from the new dungeon, Duality, although the drop rate of red border weapons from the dungeon was problem. Also, I think 10 weapons, technically more than that, being craftable in one season, probably a bit much. As I've said in my weapon crafting revisited video, I don't really hunt weapon patterns super aggressively, as I get plenty of random drops that are quite good or equal to what I would normally craft. But, what is it, a dozen patterns? It's a bit much. I think one set or the other set of weapons would have been fine, but both sets of weapons, that's a lot to go get. Solar 3.0 was the second of the 3 subclasses to get revamped, initially launching to lukewarm reviews before people ultimately realized how strong certain builds could become. Titans, Warlocks, and Hunters alike all had at least one build that turned them into an ability spamming machine. Classy Restoration was easily the seasonal mod of the season, which procced a very strong heal over time effect whenever you used your class ability, despite there being some other very good or very interesting seasonal mods. Solar 3.0 is not perfect though, as it seems the range at which you can make builds is somewhat tight. Warlocks in particular have been lamenting over the fact that they can use Starfire Protocol, or not that many other things, save for Phoenix Protocol. However, I don't anticipate Solar 3.0 going through the same difficulties as Void 3.0 did when its seasonal mods disappeared. Classy Restoration is one of the strongest mods we've ever gotten, but it didn't really affect build crafting. Most builds were made with fragments, aspects, and exotics, and Classy Restoration simply boosted your healing. All builds will continue to succeed, it's just that you won't have constantly regenerating health anymore, although the Well of Life mod is a replacement, albeit a much weaker one. Of course, any builds that relied on other mods will indeed suffer, but those tended to be a little more rare. Most people ended up sticking with Lorelei, Starfire, or Calibans for PvE, obviously depending on your class. Resilience also got a major buff overall this season, allowing for up to 40% damage reduction if you manage to stack to tier 10. I enjoy the fact that in order to really benefit from Resilience, you need to fully commit to it, tier 8, 9, or 10 at a minimum, but it does make situations where getting maybe 50 or 60 Resilience basically feels meaningless, even if it is still technically a net buff over anything that we've had previously. Resilience-based questions were some of the most common that I got during the season. Mainly, do you think that they are going to nerf Resilience? And my guess at this point is that it's on the table at the least, perhaps going down to 30% at tier 10. I know you need to fully build into it to get that maximum effect, but it's not something that I think is very difficult to do. Maybe it's a symptom of being a Titan main that's speaking with regards to that. Trespasser was the exotic weapon of the season, one of very few sidearms that I actually enjoy using, at least for PvE, coming back from Destiny 1. This sidearm was quite good in Destiny 1, and it's also very good in Destiny 2, at least as far as PvE sidearms go. The perk is incredibly strong, allowing for massive damage boosts after reloading after a kill with the ability to chain it endlessly as long as you are killing things. I didn't see it a ton in PvP though, actually seeing other legendary sidearms much more frequently. The Catalyst gives tunnel vision, which you would think is sort of irrelevant because the whole point is to not reload, but tunnel vision feels more PvP oriented in order to make that next kill after a reload easier to hit. I expect to see Trespasser in Season 18 a little bit more thanks to Arc 3.0, along with maybe an appearance from last season's exotic Grand Overture thanks to the Season 18 mods featuring machine guns, and also because of Arc 3.0. The seasonal ritual weapon was Chain of Command, a machine gun, linking up with the machine gun buffs that we got this season. Coming with Adrenaline Junkie and Osmosis in one column and Adaptive Munitions and Demo in the other, this was another good but not top tier ritual weapon offering, fitting right in with the strength level that Bungie wants for these kinds of weapons. I did not see it get a ton of use this season. Fixed odds and corrective measures seem to be the more popular picks, but perhaps next season when machine guns get some seasonal artifact love, this maybe makes its way into the meta thanks to Adaptive Munitions. During this season, we also had Solstice. Just Solstice, not Solstice of Heroes, just Solstice, which had its main activity get changed around a bit, in addition to changing how these kinds of events are going to play out in the future. The EAZ was revamped in how it was completed, essentially turning it into a Forge event from Season of the Forge back in Season 5. There were also many in-air platforms introduced to make navigating around the map a bit easier, and Bungie also got rid of the chest hunting at the end, which I personally did not mind that much at all that they did that. There was some feedback though that the activity had just turned into 3 people camping the 3 spots where the mini-bosses spawn, making it a little bit less interesting than before, although if you didn't like all the running around, you probably found it a bit more palatable. Solstice was also one of the best ways to hunt down high stat roll armor with specific stats due to the ability to target specific stats and the fact that you never had to step foot in endgame content. Bungie also adopted a new model for these kinds of events called the Event Pass. You can play the event for free, or you can spend 1,000 silver to unlock the ability to get a bunch of cosmetics via event tickets, which are earned by doing challenges within the event. They also introduced titles linked to these events, and a meta title if you get all of the other titles, which I thought was pretty neat. I didn't have too much to say about the event pass as I thought the value of the actual cosmetics from it was good. You got more than 1,000 silvers worth of stuff if you got all of the items via the event tickets, but they're just cosmetics at the end of the day, and I'm pretty much done talking about Eververse related things, this being one of them. If you all keep buying things, Bungie will keep making things to sell to you, and that is pretty much that. Rift made its triumphant return during the season as well as a part of Iron Banner after years of waiting, and it was fine. In the second iteration of Rift during the season, they tweaked the mode so that the Mercy rule would pop up after you went ahead by 3 goals. They also fixed a bunch of bugs, so that's good. I am not as cynical about the game mode as other people were, although I do miss the days of getting 10,000 points in D1 and just dragging my team, kicking and screaming to victory. Check out my Rift video if you want another refresher, but then just bump up my opinions a click or two because some stuff got changed for the better. It's great when you have two teams of 6 fighting each other. It's great when teams are really balanced, but as with all modes, it can suffer from imbalanced skill matchups. I hesitate to discuss the Duality dungeon as it is not technically a part of the season. It is purchased on its own via the dungeon pass, but most people are going to think of it as a part of Season 17 no matter what, so let's do it anyway. I thought this dungeon was pretty fun from a combat perspective. There's a lot going on all the time, and Solar 3.0 was a great way to tackle this challenge. Some of the main criticisms that I saw were that all of the fights use the exact same mechanic, whereas in other dungeons, things get changed up a little bit, which is totally valid. I didn't think about it that hard at first because I was enjoying the combat experience, but it's definitely valid. Others complained earlier in the season that there were too many enemies in the arena, but I think people have gotten a handle on that by now. It's just a more combat-oriented experience versus a mechanic-based one. I never got around to doing a Heart Shadow video, which was the exotic from the dungeon, but it seems to be a forgettable item at the moment as there isn't too much buzz about it. Duality also launched with its own title and triumphs, including triumphs that increased the drop rate of the Heart Shadow exotic when completed, which I think should be a staple in all dungeons and raid activities going forward. Also, Duality is one of very few places in the game currently where you can really put one of these super powerful builds to work and not have it feel like complete overkill. Now, is this because it is quite literally one of the newest pieces of endgame content and thus is designed around the fact that we have these builds? I'm gonna go with yeah, but it still highlights one of the major issues that I have with the game today. While I don't mind playing older content, most of this content is not updated to Year 5 sandbox standards. It makes something like the Strike playlist a lot less fun when going through, and upping the spawn rates of some enemies might get people more excited to actually play. Duality also doesn't suffer from any modifiers. You don't need to worry about champion mods. You don't need to worry about elemental restrictions. You can just go in there and annihilate stuff to your heart's content. And that's what we need more of if you want people to get excited to go play the game itself. At least that's how I feel. More avenues for people to really utilize these builds without feeling like overkill. Overall, I think you could more or less copy-paste my conclusion from last season into this season. This season was a season. You ever play a season of Destiny content? Pretty much went exactly according to plan. Did it go above and beyond? In some spots, sure. In other spots, not really. I think the Delete, Classy, Resto, and PvP crowd probably has some things to say about how PvP went this season. Although, hey, first new map in multiple years. You got Rift back, so that's something. Did the season do less than I was expecting? Absolutely not. The story was sharp, but that's almost an expectation at this point. Gameplay was gameplay. Sandbox got Solo 3.0, which has been mostly good in my eyes. If anything, this season showed that, yet again, the core playlist needs some more juice, or perhaps people are just too used to the seasonal model at this point. I know Gambit just got a revamp. I still don't want to touch it, but I think there's very little Bungie can do at this point to get me to play Gambit. The Strike playlist is still feeling stale because of a problem I just mentioned earlier. Crucible is what it is. I think it's just the fact that we've been doing very similar feeling stuff for such a long time that you're just kind of used to everything, and it doesn't really get you jazzed up anymore, or the appeal wears off faster than usual. This season checked all the boxes that Bungie usually checks. Story, seasonal activity, weapons, exotic, ritual, seasonal event, check, check, check. Although this season did feel like it was even grindier than a usual season. Maybe it's all the crafted weapon patterns, or the sheer amount of times you had to run containment for triumphs, or even the seasonal challenges. If anything, I think this season has taught a lot of veteran players that they should take some time off. Go take a breather. Go without playing for a little while and give yourself some time away so that when you do come back to the game, you can appreciate it a little bit more. And at the risk of keeping things short and at the risk of not having enough words to fulfill a college essay requirement, I think that's all I really have to say. it was a season. It wasn't a terrible season. It wasn't an over-the-top fantastic season, but it was fine. It was a season. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.